All right, we'll get public session to started. We have two speakers signed up to speak. I just ask that you state your name and address and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. The first speaker is George Broadwell.
Evening. I understand I have an hour.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm asking the board to table the decision on the Port Authority's request for modification to East First Street. Without saying I'm totally against it. First of all, the Port Authority is not a friend of Oswego. In my opinion, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. You have to get your deals up in front and be clear about what they are before you deal with the port, and you got to keep wondering what's around the corner. An example of that would be the silos that they put up this past summer in our city. You know, they destroyed the look of the harbor and the lighthouse, something we've all enjoyed for years. Not a thought. There's other things they could have done with those silos. There's other locations down there they could put there. But did the current administration care about that? Not at all. They just stuck it right in us and laughed in our face and said, there you go. They're supposed to do an environmental review and everything, which they never did, and they still haven't done to date. That said, I would like to get on a few other items here that bothers me about this. Number one, it's the traffic on East First and Bridge Street. You know, we just opened a water park with a big investment on our end and in the county and the state and everybody else that backed us on this project. In the 2 weeks we've been open, we have had over 3,000 visitors from all over the Northeast in Canada. We're talking Ohio and different places that come in. Over 3,000 individuals in 2 weeks, and we haven't really got the word out there. We've hired 40 to 50 new employees to operate part-time and full-time. You know, we're over 200 employment for our company alone on East First Street. And you've got the press box down there, you've got La Perilla down there, you got steamers down there, you got the 2 hotels. I'm not even talking about the people that visit these places. You know, soon we'll be bringing over 4,000 people a week into this park. This is a destination spot now for tourism. And the safety aspects of thinking to drive trucks of even 16-wheelers or anything there is insane. You're going to hurt somebody. These kids get out of these cars now, you see them. They're running to the front door. Their parents are saying, stop, watch the traffic. You know, and the kids are gone. We see it in our own parking lot coming through the Best Western lot. We're told all our employees, slow down, watch. These kids are just booking to the front door. And you want to now, the 16-wheelers, to me, that street, once it hits 104, there shouldn't be a truck heading down north on the First Street because of the safety issues. If they got to deliver there, okay, but other than that, take them in a different direction because of the safety issues of what's going on. You have a great tourist spot here. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen the inside of the water park, but it's pretty exciting, you know. If you make these changes, not only are you making the changes for what they're asking for, but now the trucks come down, they come down in Oswego out of 481. They're going to go straight through that light. They're not going to go up to 2nd Street anymore because now they can navigate down on Cayuga and make that turn better. They say, I'm not going up to 2nd Street. They don't like going up to 2nd Street. But they're forced to go to 2nd Street. Now they're going to come in the same trucks leaving the port to go down to 2nd Street. We're not going to go down to 2nd Street. We're going to turn right on Cayuga and we're going to go by the hotels. So you're not just opening this up for what they're requesting, you know? And with the thousands of people we're bringing in and all that's going on that street, you're thinking of bringing more trucks down there? You should post it no trucks and leave it at that. And just because of the safety issue. That said, the intersection, let's say that happened. What do you do during the daytime or nighttime? When you got a truck coming down and all of a sudden you got 104 going, traffic going east and west, and you got all these trucks coming up and down the intersection. What do you do with everybody? Tell them to stop. I want to go to lunch at the press box. I want to go down to La Perilla. I want to go in the hotel. I want to go into the conference center. And all these conferences we're booking now that are coming in. What do you say to these people? Hold. Stop. We got a truck out here in the intersection and another truck behind them and one behind him. You're going to cluster up that whole intersection and stop. It's just not a smart thing to do. You got a chip in your hand now. They want something from you guys. Take that chip and make them come up with a plan over the next 1 or 2 years where they're going to move their traffic out east of Oswego, up, I forget the name of the street now, to 104. I understand they're talking about buying Hammer Mill. If they come up with the right kind of money and do it, they'll get Hammer Mill. But you got to force them to move east and move out. What's their 25-year plan? What's their 50-year plan? This is the way my head is always thinking. What's going to be on down the road? You know, what do they want? Where do they want to be in 50 years? They want to keep going through the intersection of East First Street and 104? Force their hand now to put something on the table to say they're going to go that way. The other thing, they start screaming about, well, we don't approve this, we're going to do this because of the Port Authority and all the men we're putting to work. We got to do it for them. They're not going to lose. They're going to put that deal together. They may not have a nice bottom line that they want when they cut a deal with Micron because they got to go a longer distance around, but they're going to put it together. Micron don't care how you get that product to their shop. They just want to know that you're going to get it there. So what's the bottom line of the Port Authority? It might cost money to get them around, and there'll be more people working at the port because it may take them longer to do it. So all this stuff they're putting on the table to you and telling us, we got to have this, you got to get it done now. Don't trust them. You got a chip in your hand. I'm saying right now, put something on paper in some short terms where they're going to guarantee things. And I guess that's pretty much it. I'll let my son Shane say a few words, but thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Next up is Shane Broadwell.
I'm just going to touch on just a couple other, a few other points, I guess. There's, I've talked to most counselors, I've talked to a lot of other people with regard to the project, but a lot of it's come up, hey, we are a port community, we've been a port community for a very, very long time. I just like to also say you can't not look around the city, and with the DRI projects and all the projects of the counselors outside of DRI throughout the entire city, the mayor and the counselors, you cannot say that you haven't seen this city be completely transformed. It's been an amazing process. It's been amazing for us to be part of the process, even as a DRI. So the west side and the east side is completely transformed now. When you talk about looking at, and you guys can look at data, but look at the sales tax dollars in the city and how things have transformed. We are very, very much now a tourist community also on top of that. Things we did not have back there in the time that you have to take into account all of those things. When I bring up the DRI, there's been an ongoing conversation with Paul Byer. He's with the Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure. And they are so excited to come here. They're coming at the end of July for a big ribbon cutting. The Secretary of the State's coming. You're probably aware of that. And we are the last DRI project for this Splash Indoor Water Park to open in the city. And then, as far as I understand, that means that you are now the first to complete all projects. That's very exciting stuff. I mean, and when you see that and you hear them and how passionate they are about having those ribbon cuttings, that's pretty impressive because they're very, very excited about the transformation that those dollars have leveraged. But at the same time, I took an opportunity to email back and say, hey, first of all, we didn't know anything about it until we saw it in the newspaper on Friday. And it turns out that none of the businesses on East First Street knew a thing about it until I reached out and said to them. So that's a little concerning in itself. And we get letters all the time. If anybody's going to modify a curb, you get a letter that says, hey, we're going to, you give you an opportunity to go to planning and development or go to those meetings to have a conversation. But here this is, we're modifying an entire city block, changing of streetscapes, and none of us knew a thing about it until Friday or Thursday night when it hit the newspapers. But I emailed Paul and said, hey, just wondering if you're aware of these transformations, and as you're coming to town for these DRI, and you're in the middle of two of them, the housing complex across the street, ours, and many others, are you aware that the Port Authority is looking to erase streetscapes and change things to modify. His reply was, thanks for the heads up, and let me look into it. It just, it just goes back to our fact that we believe that the board should be working with the county leadership, city leadership, and the state planners and development and community infrastructure to come up with a long-term solution. And we believe that the direction we're going on East First Street with what we already see is not just going to be seasonal now. We're hoping and those things will continue throughout the winter. It's going to seriously help impact and change the community throughout the winter months. So we're wholly opposed to the transformation on East First Street. We want to keep seeing it go the other direction. Softening up the entrance to the community is what it should be. I mean, we're having conversations about even more bistro, street lights, as my father said, after COVID, we're finally getting state conferences back, and we'll have more by the end of this year than we've had at all, and in the exposure with our team. So that's what we should be going more towards, softening up our streetscapes. That is the welcoming point for people to come into the community, for the conference center, the hotels, the businesses, and all. So we're hoping that you do look for a no vote or a table so that they can get the state leadership and others more involved in looking for a better long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience like to address the council before we get started? Seeing none, I'll close public session and call the regular meeting to order. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag